rumbling. From the sky, it turns black, and the dragon appears and attacks you all!
Ooh, 19, that was close.
Hey guys.
Hey, Dave, what's up?
Hey, Dave. You guys play?
Dungeons and Dragons, man.
Isn't that like kind of lame? Kind of lame?
Nah, I'm not really into esports.
Nah, man, look, let me tell you what Dungeons and Dragons is, why you should care, and debunk some of the myths about it.
Nah, man, that's kind of dumb.
Dio! ほう、向かってくるのか。逃げずにこのディオに近づいてくるのか。近づかなきゃ、てめえをぶちのめせないんでな。ほうほう。では十分近づくがよい。
You walk into a dark, old laboratory. Cells litter the wall, filled with human remains. There seems to be a trapdoor hidden in the floor. What do? Well, I can tell you what our rogue did. But first, let's clear up some misconceptions about what Dungeons & Dragons actually is. So Dungeons & Dragons, in the most simple way I can put it, is really just a set of rules that you and your friends can follow and use them to create a world, and then characters that go through that world and interact with it in different ways, such as quests and tasks that usually involve you killing some sort of magical monster, like a dragon or zombies or stuff like that. It would be like if you bought a board game and all that came with it was a rule book. It'd be up to you and your friends to create the board itself and the pieces and maybe some accessories that help you play, but as long as you follow the rules, everything else is up to you. So the way it could look could be completely different between how you play it and how someone else plays it. The same thing is with Dungeons & Dragons. So one of your members in your group would be designated as the Dungeon Master, and it is up to them to create the world itself and the challenges and tasks that your group would face, and they'll present it to the group and play the storyteller, referee kind of figure, so they'll make sure you follow the rules and kind of choose where you are going to go. So who cares? Well, us as college students should care. So it turns out Dungeons & Dragons is actually really good for your mental health. So Menachem Ben Ezra published an article in Psychiatric Quarterly, which is a medical review journal that's been around since 1915, and in it he talked about how he interviewed over 100 different psychiatrists across the country and asked them if they thought Dungeons & Dragons was a valid way to treat mental illnesses. And it turns out over 76% of them said that yes, it is, and that they have used it in the past. So this is already a way that psychiatrists are using to help people with mental problems. And Dr. Wayne Blackman, who is a practicing psychiatrist in Washington, he's had his license for over 20 years and is still in practice today, wrote an article talking about how he helped a college student with depression by using Dungeons & Dragons. So all his other methods that he used with this student really didn't work. Student was very closed off and didn't want to open up with him, but he started using Dungeons & Dragons as a way to treat his depression, and he said the change was astounding. He was able to make a ton of progress and help the student with his problems. So I think the main reason for this is that Dungeons & Dragons offers such a great escape from your problems. In it, you can literally be whoever you want, and the world itself can be tailored to the things that you want to do or the experiences that you want to have. So it is just a great way for you to take a break from all the stresses of college and stuff like that and kind of step into a new world. And I know that kind of seems weird to say, but honestly, that's what all our pastimes are. That's the reason we play video games, the reason we watch movies, the reason we read books. It's just a way to kind of step away from the stress of your life and distract yourself with something fun. Also, Dr. Jennifer Cole Wright, who has a PhD in psychology, is a professor at the College of Charleston, and has several books published about various topics in psychology, did a study on college students again, and had one group that didn't play Dungeons & Dragons and one group that did, and sent them both some questionnaires and self-evaluation forms, and found that the group that did play reported higher levels of moral growth and felt like they were more close with the friends that they played with. And I can personally attest to growing closer to the friends you play with. I made some amazing memories of my friends that we still laugh about and remember today. Now, I think there are two main reasons that people are hesitant to play D&D, and that is the social stigma surrounding it and the difficult learning curve. So let's talk about the stigma surrounding it. I think most people view Dungeons & Dragons as this unpopular, nerdy game that kids in their basement play, but really that's not that true. First, the popularity. Dungeons & Dragons is actually getting a lot more popular than you think. Honestly, most of you guys probably have heard of it from the show Stranger Things, where the main characters are known for playing Dungeons & Dragons. Also, Wizards of the Coast, who are the people that made Dungeons & Dragons, reported that 2019, their sales went up 300% since last year, and their demographic is shifting to mostly people under the age of 25. So it is definitely taking off, and I think a big part of that is this group called Critical Role. Now, if you haven't heard of Critical Role yet, I promise you will soon. They are, in their own words, a group of nerdy-ass voice actors who get together and play Dungeons & Dragons. They decided to start filming their sessions and posting them on YouTube and streaming them on Twitch, and they grew in popularity very rapidly. Now, they actually travel the country doing shows live and sell out venues all across the United States. A couple years ago, they decided that they wanted to make an animated special about their characters, just one short 20-minute feature that showed some of their popular campaign moments. And so they opened a Kickstarter asking for $750,000 in 45 days, which is a lot of money. And within the first night, they had raised over $4 million and ended up raising a total of $11 million. Their show has been picked up by Amazon Prime and will have 2 seasons streamed. So if you don't think that Dungeons & Dragons is growing in popularity, you're wrong, because it is getting huge. So what about the demographic? Even the Critical Role people I just talked about say that they're nerdy. So is it only nerds that play Dungeons & Dragons? Well, that is also not the case. So this is Joe Manganiello, and if you haven't heard of him, he's actually Sofia Vergara's husband, and pretty high on my list of people I would not want to fight.
I wouldn't want to fight me neither. Kick his ass, man.
Well, Joe Manganiello has actually published content for Dungeons & Dragons. He's played since he was a kid and still plays today. Other people who have been known for playing Dungeons & Dragons are Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Vin Diesel. Stephen Colbert recently did a charity stream where he had a ton of celebrities come together and play Dungeons & Dragons. So the stereotype isn't as limited as you think, and there are a lot of different people who play it and enjoy it. Now, what about the learning curve? Another thing you might know about Dungeons & Dragons is that it's pretty complicated, and honestly, that's true. Here on the screen, I'm going to show you a picture of what a character sheet looks like, and it is a lot. There are a lot of numbers you have to keep track of, a lot of dice you have to roll, but, I mean, we're college students. We can get the hang of it. It's really not that bad once you start to learn. Another issue is the Dungeon Master role. So whenever you play Dungeons & Dragons, like I said earlier, someone has to come up with the world and kind of guide the players through. And this can be a pretty daunting task, especially if you've never played before. Well, there are actually a ton of great resources for this. So there's actually a store in Waco called King's Landing, and one night of the week, they have DMs that sit in the store and will work with groups who come in. So if you don't have a DM but you want to play, you can go there and they will supply one for you. I think they may have stopped that recently because of COVID, but it's definitely something that they'll be bringing back because they love to do it. Also, there are online resources. The website roll20.net is a great way to find groups or DMs if you want to start a session. And there are also tons of resources to help you become a DM yourself. So Wizards of the Coast have published some pre-made adventures, which are books that kind of establish a world for you so you don't have to come up with all that, and kind of give you some tips on how you should guide your group through it. And those are great ways to help you start and to learn. Alright, let's recap. First thing we talked about is what Dungeons & Dragons really is, and that's honestly just a set of rules that you can use to do whatever you want with. We then talked about how it can help us as college students, and that's namely it being good for our mental health and helping us grow closer to our friends. We then debunked some of the common myths about Dungeons & Dragons, such as is it even popular and who should be playing it. I then gave you some tools you can use to get started on your own. Now you're probably still wondering what happened to my rogue in that past example I talked about. Well, when we were all asleep, he went and snuck down that trapdoor. Turns out it was a cage for a monster made out of flesh that ate him alive. So it just goes to show that literally anything can happen in Dungeons & Dragons. Hopefully you've enjoyed this speech and it's kind of debunked some of the myths you've had about Dungeons & Dragons in your head and encouraged you to play. It's a great pastime that I picked up and I'd love to do it. So thanks for tuning in for this speech and the past two. I've had such a great time making them, and hopefully you've learned a couple things. Well, that's all from me. I will see you guys next time.